So the claim that the advocate said is that e-cigarette companies appeal and advertise to adolescents. The reasons that he explained this was that the wide range of nicotine flavors is associated with increased e-cigarette use in adolescents but not adults. The second claim that he said was that e-cigarette companies have used youth advertising concepts to target adolescents. The third and final claim that he said is that e-cigarette advertisements can be found anywhere and accessed anywhere. So the advocate claims that e-cigarette companies appeal and advertise to adolescents, which I don't think anyone can argue that they don't. But I think what the advocate fails to do is that he fails to include the fact that they don't just advertise to teens but also to adults. So to begin with, I'm going to start with his first claim saying that the wide range of nicotine flavors is associated with increased e-cigarette use in adolescents but not adults. So the advocate claims that because there are more flavors, there is an increased amount of e-cigarette use in teens but not adults. He uses a survey done at Oberlin College that states that adolescents preferred fruit, alcohol, and other flavored e-liquids, whereas adults disproportionately prefer tobacco, menthol, mint, coffee, and spice-flavored e-liquids. And he makes it seem that it's only pertaining to the teens, but I used the same exact source that he provided, and I found that that survey also said that adults also preferred a greater total amount of flavors compared to adolescents and use e-cigarettes more frequently. This proves that it's not just pertaining to the teens, but also to adults, and in fact, the adults are using it even more frequently because of the variety of flavors. His second point is that e-cigarette companies have used youth advertising concepts to target adolescents. This is also a way that they target the teens as well, the adults as well. The advocate talks about the K-index, and the K-index is just something that stands for content appealing to youth. And so he uses this to show that how they are targeting the youth by using scenes. For example, he says that e-cigarette companies use happiness, friendship, sex appeal, and success to hook the teens. And while this may be true, who doesn't want happiness and all those friendship things? I think it's too broad of a topic, and it impacts all of us. And this isn't a style that's just used on e-cigarettes, but also used on beer ads as well. Like, they're always just like, oh, you can have a fun time with the boys, or like, let's crack open a cold one. I think it's just used to like advertise to everyone. The third and final claim that the advocate uses is that e-cigarette advertising can be found and accessed everywhere. The advocate talks about how teenagers are commonly exposed to e-cigarettes via ads. He then states that students are more susceptible to e-cigarettes because of the ads. The advocate makes it sound like it's a bad thing that they are smoking, which it is, but that's not. Then we stray away from the topic, which the main claim that he's trying to give us is that e-cigarettes companies appeal to the youth, and I don't think that's part of the argument. And then what I did is that I went into a website called Statistica, and I found a statistic that said that 2.7 billion people have a smartphone. So with this in mind, a lot of people have access to the internet, not just teenagers. And this means that adults are just as susceptible at running into e-cigarette ads as the teens are. In conclusion, the advocate claims that e-cigarette companies appeal and advertise to adolescents, but they also advertise to the adults as well. Thank you.
Gesundheit. All right, well, I think you took a pretty, pretty narrow focus on the subject, which is probably best in the circumstances because there is probably not a lot of dispute about, access to these things, and that the teens are likely to be potentially influenced by these things. You, in essence, though, are arguing that it's not targeting, it's really just general advertising, and it has the same effect on adults as it does on teens. And in essence, the question becomes, what's an advertiser supposed to do? Not advertise their product that is legally available, because teens might actually see those ads and might be interested in those things as well. If there's something illegitimate or problematic about targeting teens, then let's hear what that is. But the argument that you're making is this is just general advertising. I think that's the way you want to present this, is that it's really just not adolescent advertising, it's advertising, and adolescents happen to see it. That's a coincidental relationship, it's not a causal relationship. The reason that they're doing this is not because the cigarette companies are trying to do this. Your challenge on this, I think, well, the best evidence that you have is on that first point, where you found in the same source that the advocate used, that adults also like different flavors. It just happens to be different kinds of flavors that they like, and that they use more than the adolescents do, which I think does kind of respond to that position that the advocate's talking about. You know, is the advertising having a particular effect? And you're saying it is having an effect, but it's having an effect on adults more than it's having an effect on adolescents. So how can it be targeted to adolescents if it's having this kind of influence? You know, you've got basic sign reasoning that you're looking at there. On the second point, you challenge the reasoning that the advocate's using, suggesting that, oh my goodness, big surprise, adolescents are attracted by happiness and success and sexuality and friendship. Who isn't attracted to those kinds of things? You know, the notion that this K-index is somehow unique to particular groups and that you can target them seems to be a big assumption that's being made here. And I think you ask a very legitimate question on it. You don't have any evidence or argument to make about it, but I think you ask the right questions. And, well, this is advertising that's used for all kinds of products, and it affects all kinds of people. It's not exclusive to adolescents. It's, you know, you could sell cars to adults this way. You can sell life insurance to adults using those kinds of things as well. Success, happiness, friendship, you know, sex. My goodness, imagine that. All the ads for Cialis that are directed at old men who have ED, they're using the exact same techniques. So I think you could use maybe a couple more examples here to make it the point that you're talking about, even though you don't have any specific evidence on it. But then it would, you know, be something that you could, you know, kind of get your hands on and say, well, this is, you know, this is not unique, right? And the advocate's claiming it is unique. And then the access thing, well, you've got the most generic argument here at all. Well, everybody has access to the internet, so yeah, I guess they're going to have that. You know, do the advertisers target sites that are likely to be frequented by teens? Do they use social media tools that are more popular among a younger audience than an older audience? You know, if all their stuff is on Snapchat or Instagram as opposed to Facebook and Twitter, then maybe we could say, okay, well, that's clearly targeting young people. But was there any evidence of that kind of thing? I think those would be the kinds of challenges that you'd want to make there. All right, thank you.